Hey everybody, back at the hub. I'm Matthew. This is Lindsay. We're going to start doing ultimately some seated poses. Lindsay, if you don't know, has an amputation below the knee, and so we're going to be doing some stuff without the prosthetics. But to start, one of the things that in other clips that we've been exploring is, by the way, she's a really good asana practitioner, so she can do all sorts of things, including a lot of standing poses. One of the things we were exploring in other clips was how to extend her awareness down through her feet. You know, the prosthetic starts below the knee, down through her feet, and get a sense of more fullness in the poses. So you should watch those. They're amazing. But one of the core ways that works is there's a line from Bigas Iyengar, Tadasanas in every pose. And I think that when you live with a disability like paralysis or the situation that Lindsay's in, there's an advantage in realizing the energetic core of Tadasana, so that we have an advantage over people that live with a, quote, able body. And that is that you learn the instructions. If you're just teaching to someone with a, quote, normal body or traditional body, that they get caught up in the muscular actions, the instructions. And what's really trying to be revealed, I think, by a pose like Tadasana is a very core, basic, energetic way or awareness way that awareness flows through the human system. And that's in every pose. And that's what I think we can get here. So one of the things that, this won't be as much visual, but as Lindsay's sitting here, if we're some obvious things, if she sits all the way back in her chair, sit all the way back, just like you would, if you don't live with it, she already aligns her legs. She's too much of a yoga student. Put your legs back out there, right? That she doesn't feel her legs as much. Not only does she not, this is different where she, has her organic body, but then this is actually less aware. So as she comes forward, right, and then sit up straight like what you want to do, right? This actually gets, and the same thing would be true for you, like if you don't live with prosthetics, right, that there'd be more awareness. But there's refinements that you can make. So if you're watching, at home in a chair, hit down with your sitting bones and lift gently up with your lower abdomen, which actually lifts her chest. You can see that happening here. But and then release for a second. The other thing it does, and this is the energetic, which I don't know what the right word would be, the pranic side of Tadasana, but the inner pranic side, because outer body's prana too, right, is that when she hits down her sitting bones and lifts her very low abdomen up, awareness goes down towards through the heels. So if you're teaching this to traditional people, you'd say, feel your sitting bones down, lift the core up, tailbone up, you could say, just to give them a proximity, and press down through your inner heels. And those instructions are just trying to follow what's actually happening when you make this basic change near the spine. So this would be a version of Tadasana sitting, right, where the sitting bones and the feet are somehow combining just to be the feet in Tadasana. But you get to learn something different at the base of the spine. So now stand up. Now, I think Tadasana, in some ways, and just face forward.
Okay.
Tadasana is actually harder to realize this inward edge of Tadasana standing, because you don't have this extra bending that helps the mind process and integrate, right? But the same thing is actually being true in one way. For a traditional student, you hit the tailbone forward and hit the top of the thighs back. That would send awareness and get her taller, but also awareness down through her heels, right? And so that's happening here too, right? So Tadasana, this core lifting, while there's an expansion down, is actually at the core. And I'm obviously will be exploring this truth the rest of my life, is that when Bigas Iyengar says that's in every pose, I think the energy for sure is, but how it particularly go in every pose is interesting. So we just take your arms and legs wide.
Sure.
Okay, so this is, so you can see that Lindsay obviously get more expensive, right? And so that's about as wide as you like your legs, right?
Oh, I step wider.
Step a little wider. So, yeah, see, you can just see, I want you to get this sense of expansion that Lindsay has. Take the other arm forward a little bit. Yeah, right? And so this is, and then I know, just so they can see, because you do it so well, but I know this is not with the right props. What would you need to do Trikonasana that way? Would you need a block or anything?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So I hope you're noticing, of course, I'm just in the way of the camera. I hope you're noticing what a balancing magician she is, right? So again, Lindsay's very capable of quite a lot of expansion in a standing pose, right? And she's finding all these ways to, now if she differentiates in the lower abdomen to get more awareness to her heels and extends her spine this way as she holds her tailbone like an anchor some. That's not quite right, but it works, right? Then she gets this more feeling in her feet. Good, and then come on back up. Why don't we just quick go the other way so you're even. So again, I just want you to get a sense of, first of all, what poses look like when she's using her prosthetics and how expansive they can feel. I'm just going to take your arm a little bit, right? And how it is when she starts to integrate through her spine, she'll get more awareness through her legs, all the way down through the feet. Now, that's a miraculous thing about the human nervous system. You've already heard Lindsay say that she can feel her toes and her feet, and then come on up. Right. So, when you feel your feet in a pose like that, Lindsay, impossible words now. What does that mean? Like, what, right? You feel where they are, but like when some of the instructions start happening and you start to get a deeper sense of that, what sense are you having?
It's a lot of different sensations. First, I feel more grounded. When someone is talking about, the energy or sensing through the feet, I immediately feel more grounded. And then, so the energy is like flowing in and out, or it's like circular, right?
Yeah, more connected.
Yeah, it's more connected.
So just for a second, I want to pause there. And so literally, if you take the implications of that she experiences a deeper grounder sensation, that means the sensation of grounding is transcendent and works even if you don't have your limb there. Now, that's something that all of us should contemplate about the human metaphysics. So you feel more grounded. What else do you feel?
I also feel more expansive. So it means it takes the grounding and then the extension, right, to feel more expansive.
Right.
I also feel very whole, too.
All right. So those are obviously all of us have those goals in all the poses we do for yoga, right? So let's start heading out of the ground, if you don't mind taking off your prosthetics and going through that process. So one's got a sock and one doesn't. Is that because one's like being more swollen, or?
The right leg is currently smaller. It needs more.
More expansion, and that's a sock that's going over your actual leg.
It goes over the prosthetic liner, and it helps to take up volume loss.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. All right, so now right away, given the conversation we had about how your body feels, what feels different? If you're sitting in with your prosthetics on, what feels different now?
Well, with my prosthetics on and having a heel, I feel like my body, my alignment is better internally. So when I sit on the floor, I like to have a blanket underneath my calves to help give a similar sensation to having my heels on the mat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having so that actually creates a sensation like having heels, or
It is. It's like having heels.
but you have the sensation out here, or is it if you had heels, you'd feel something different in here?
It's kind of both.
It's both.
It's both.
So, by the way, we're in fascinating land, right? Whereas you should when you're working with somebody, you just get quiet and go, holy cow.
So when I sit like this, kind of feel like the energy just stops. It stops like right here where I make contact with the ground and with the mat.
Okay,
And
so
then-
if you think about this in terms of reference, right? So once she gets the reference of where she's touching the ground, that stops a sense of sensation. But I wonder then does that sensation, and don't be afraid to say no, right? Does that sensation come back when I like push on your at all or not?
A little bit, not
A little bit. How
fully.
about on your sacrum? I'm going to put the block into your sacrum.
Sure.
How about that?
That brings more sensation than up in my
But
thoracic.
but there isn't but there isn't like where your heels are.
No.
See, now this is just so freaking cool, actually. So now bring the blanket back, because I wonder if it's under your knees, right? So there's
No,
got to
it's
be
actually underneath my
Right.
calves.
right. Is it creating ease in your knees?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where I'm wondering on the fly here, is if by creating more ease on her knees, by getting the bottom below her knee more lined up, is if the joint awareness, right, there isn't as much strain in the joint, which
Right.
maybe perhaps allows you to feel your brain's got a pathway to where your ankles are. And so, contrary, too much effort in the knees will take away from the realization and connection to where the ankles are.
That
Getting
makes
that more
sense.
smooth, and also getting what's left. You still have, do you have some tibia, fibia below your
I
knees?
do.
Yeah.
These are
So it's
knees,
also
yeah.
getting the bones lined up here, right, through the joint, which allows the brain to recall or feel where the joint isn't, right, or by the heels. Makes some sense, right? So, all right. So then how does it change at all, given that you've got this blanket here? Does it change at all again when you do that? When you put, like, you have another object there?
A little bit.
Yeah, not so much. It's more the blanket. It's more the
Yeah.
internal. See, that's cool, right? Okay, so when you take your arms up over your head, right? You're probably, well, I should ask you, but are you right now pushing out to your heels?
Yes.
Okay, when you don't, try to mess yourself up and don't.
Okay.
What is the difference? What do you feel that when you don't, when you end at where your body is? Do you notice a difference?
It feels heavy and weighted into the ground, and like the energy just goes towards the ground, and it's no longer expansive.
Okay, so take your arms down so you don't get too
Okay.
tired. Okay, my noodle's getting baked, in my head, because like that, if she doesn't extend, it gets heavier. But those have done yoga long enough, that totally makes sense. It's going to not just be whether you have limbs or not.
Like I feel like I'm just a brick right
A brick, right? And you want to, but so one of the things for beginning yoga students is that when it starts to dawn on them that their poses don't end at the terminus of their body, poses get lighter again too. So what we're seeing is a phenomena that a beginner goes through. She's already figured out that like she needs to extend. All right, so then take your arms wide, not over your head. Just take them wide. So then what happens if? So then could we take them down and could we turn and face this way?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm curious, right? Take your legs wide, but now we need two blankets, right?
No.
So why
I
is that
don't.
different? Because you have better contact below your
Yeah.
knee, right? Is that why? Is it touching the ground
It
better?
is.
Is that it, right? But you're tipped forward on your pelvis, so go back a
Right.
little bit. Take your legs. So is that back to not feeling as much?
It is a little bit. It's not the same as like sitting in Dandasana though.
Do you like it better in Dandasana?
No, I like it better wide leg.
Okay, so don't take them quite so wide because that's
Okay.
wider than a standing pose would be.
Oh, yes.
Now, would you rather have the blanket or not?
No.
You
As
still
long as
feel
I'm not
connected
too
enough?
wide, I feel connected.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, that this is different. There are things going on, I think, just with, so if you're to do a version of Trikonasana here, like down to the ground with your hand, like take a hand down here and over. You maybe don't need the block, right? So this is like one way that we teach, right? So, but now for anybody, right? For anybody, awareness through the back leg is harder, right? And this is going to be true in Trikonasana too. So I'm just pressing down there a little bit to help her ground the pose. Now you got to figure out where should that be? You should roll it in, walk your hand a little farther out. No, down away from you. Yep. So the shoulder girdle, the shoulder is actually being more in and down, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So walk your hand a little farther out. And then connect this way. So you're trying to make sure that the connection through your chest, there, see now, did that help you feel out through your legs? So that helped her feel out through her legs. So check that out. That shows her heel, right? Especially her back heel.
Isn't that amazing?
If I jam her here and do the opposite of yoga, she feels the limits of her body more.
Yeah.
If I go like that and she expands. So I'm beginning to think that it has to do with awareness in the joints. And so when Gita Iyengar says, synchronize the joints, that's allowing her to feel to her heels, right? Because when I jam, I'm jamming her joints too.
Yeah.
When I expand and pull and show direction, then she gets to have the pose better, right? And so come on up and do it the other way. So pretty much, if you think about the sensation of unity, it almost always implies some source of sense of expansion too. So now see how this shoulder does different, and we can tell this shoulder gets more aligned, right? Because of your wrist, I'm sure, because she has a broken wrist up here, or had a broken wrist, and it throws it out of alignment. So again, so is it easier, before I do anything, is it easier or harder to expand up to the back leg heel in this direction?
It's easier.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. So I don't think there'll be as much drama if I do that, or is there? Will you be able? Can you feel your heel better?
No, actually.
Yeah. See, I don't think you need it here. I think you've already got it here. How about when I jam it?
It still has a jamming sensation.
Yeah. So she's got an easier expansion this direction when she goes this way, and doesn't need space across her chest as much. And I'm sure it has to do with the way her palm can get down. And then come on up. So bring your legs together. Sit in. There she goes. She goes, see, what I love about Lindsay as a student, because she's been practicing for so long, is that she goes right away to get it optimal. Like, I don't have to point that out to her. So that's how you start trusting your student, that that she's going to know what's best for her. And I don't have to keep thinking, oh no, because if she knows that kind of awareness, she knows awareness not to overdo as much and not to get hurt. So already, from a teaching perspective, I'm going, dang, she knows exactly where she needs to be. So you like having your legs wide more than together
Yeah.
on the ground. Do you know, can you describe why?
For me, it's more on a physical. Well, then it becomes an internal level. But I think it's the way my pelvis sits, and then the way the energy moves up and down my spine. So it's more freeing to sit with my legs wide than it is together. It's probably why I'm not so fond of forward folds too. I like forward folding where my legs are wider versus having my legs together. Like Uttanasana is a lot harder than a wide leg.
Right. Do you ever try to do like what we just did, but while balancing on your legs without your
I have.
prosthetic?
It's been a while, but I can do it though.
Want to give it a try?
Yeah.
I'm just curious what it would be. Yep. All right, so why don't we
Okay.
do that? Oh, so you do it like that. Okay. All right.
So now where?
Yeah. So now let's just talk right here again. Right? So obviously you're not as physically tall, but if you were standing on your prosthetics with your legs, they're not on your prosthetics, when you're standing with your legs, full legs, what would feel different?
Well, something I've been experimenting with lately is having contact underneath my shins.
See, this is just her being really smart again. So she's
Yeah,
doing
this is
the
better.
equivalent. Can you just do-
Now it feels more like I have a heel, like I'm standing
Okay,
on
so
a
she
foot.
just, can you just turn and do that the other way?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So what she's doing, and again, this is where you just like are so grateful.
So this is
You're-
how
You're just so grateful to have a student like this, right? Because she already knows. The fact that she says, I experiment with this, all of a sudden I know she's practicing home. I know a whole bunch of things, right? Which means, and so she's doing the same thing again. So what's interesting is that when her legs were straight, it made the joint awareness made more sense. But the joint, by getting reference down by the very bottom of where her organic leg is, it helps her go through the joint again, right? So you feel where your heel is, which then has the consequence of what? You feel like lighter in your chest.
yes, I feel lighter in my chest. I feel like in some ways, this without my legs on is a little bit more similar, and I haven't figured out why, to being seated.
To being seated.
Well, there's like this sensation that I can get up through my tailbone and through my sit bones that I don't get when I'm standing in my prosthetics, but I haven't figured it out. I'm still discovering.
So what's so cool about what we've just seen too is that, and then could you just sit down again and come back into Dandasana?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so what's interesting to me is that the blanket is more important than the object for her mind. Right? So that you get that this, you already feel your heels, this helps a little bit, but not as much. So it means that, well, I don't know if it means this, but my guess is if we had a functional MRI on your head right now, that the visual cortex, if it were all just coming from the visual cortex and from that this would matter more than it does. Right? So what matters is something deeper in the nervous system. This is me speculating about how the joints awarenesses goes together. You saw that on the back. So when she was kneeling up, right? So can you do that again? I'm starting to keep moving you around, right? Like she feels her heels when that's here. Like, but it's our bias that wants to see something for her heels, right? Right? Like that's for our benefit more, that she gets a deeper connection, but she feels her heels. This is like part of where this body awareness is so not visual, right? It's so about being able to feel connection and flow. When you say you feel your heels, do you feel like where the heels are, or do you just kind of feel an expansive feeling back through where the heels would be?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's more expansive.
Yeah, see, that's what
I feel
I've
it
experienced.
more through my whole body.
Right. That the sense of ease. And so, can you just kind of come forward a little bit so you're not on the blanket?
Sure.
So what she's saying is when that's the case, well, I can actually see it in your chest too.
Yeah.
That's just not as expansive.
No,
Right?
and I feel like I'm just kind of teetering.
Teetering.
And looking.
And searching.
Searching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
searching. So go back on it. For sure. Oh, so you got it a little bit. You got a little stuck there.
That's okay.
Okay, so what I want to do is try to explore like when your legs, if we can kind of do Trikonasana again, but from your knees.
Sure.
So that means we would go this way. You'd still want the blanket underneath from below your knees so you can find where your heels are. But what's curious to me, so if I were to try to just teach now her knees as if they were her feet, right? So which you might want to do, like sometimes when you teach someone sitting in Tadasana, you pretend their sitting bones are their feet. But that's not right, because if I were to just teach her from her knees, she wouldn't get this expansive feeling as much, right? So as you add in complexity here, right? She knows exactly what height it should be. So now I got to figure that this feels kind of thwarted. Like your heels aren't in this pose as much, right?
No.
Right? And so you're having to just kind of grind a little bit more.
Yeah, it does. It's
Yeah.
not a total grind, but it
But it's not,
definitely.
you get the upper body part of Tadasana, but I would say then come on up and go the other way.
Sure.
But it seems to me like we've taken away, or what's been lost is the expansive feeling that extends
Yeah.
beyond your knees.
Yep.
So although this might to us look like a way to practice Tadasana, Trikonasana, which she does it well, right? She's not getting that expansive feeling, and therefore the lightness more through the center of her chest. And so there's nothing wrong with this, but I think it's natural. I'll push you down there a little bit, right? And then come on back up. This is probably exactly, and then have a seat and sit into Tadasana. This is probably exactly why you don't practice it very much,
Yeah.
right?
Not-
Because
yeah,
it's
not
not,
like this.
it's not aesthetic. It's not like, right? It doesn't,
No, it doesn't feel right.
does it feel destructive?
I wouldn't say that it feels destructive. I wonder if it would be over time. If
I
I
think it
kept
would be.
trying to do it, because be forcing something that's not there.
So this would be such an important teaching moment for me in learning is that if I'm reducing expansion, I'm probably increasing violence. Right? Expansion, where expansion is grounded, not
Right.
disassociation expansion, right? But like that would be focusing on the sensations is going to protect you. Like, because she can already tell, well, that just doesn't feel right. And it's like, that's not what she should grind for. So what other types of seated poses do you do?
I'll do like Sukhasana.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need.
What do you need? Another blanket? Are you good?
Yeah, I want another.
Oh, I'll get it. Another
Well,
blanket?
no, I'll use. Actually, I'm going to use this
Okay.
instead.
Already, she's just so smart.
And
about-
twist.
Yeah.
Do seated twists.
Mm-hmm. And again, she's repeating the insight about her base and her shins and all these things, right? Using the blanket. Like again, this is where you're just watching a good student at work. Okay, so you twist from here.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, sometimes I'll use blocks. I am going to use a block since I'm on a bolster.
So I gotta figure, I mean, you never did yoga before your accident, but I gotta figure that this doesn't feel that different. Because when your heels are tucked underneath you, if you had from your below your whole shin to your heel, they're kind of tucked under you
Yeah.
anyway,
I
right?
sat cross-legged a lot.
Yeah.
before. You
Does
and I
this
have
feel a
yoga
lot
practice.
different?
I mean, it does in the sense that I don't have like the same like organic like feet and legs, like they're not making contact with my thighs. You know, there's certain
like that,
sensations
yeah.
that aren't there, but in a lot of ways it feels the same. And I
Yeah,
try
I
to
would think
focus
so.
on what feels the same as opposed to what's missing.
That's probably really smart. I mean, not just from a yoga point of view, right? From a lot of point of view, right? And then, but you don't mind that it feels different, right?
No. Mm-mm.
Right? Because if you get caught trying to recreate how everything was before, these are just good
boy.
poses that she's doing. You know, and she's doing the things that everyone would do. So, and then we know the dreaded forward bends. The dreaded forward
I
bends.
feel like child's pose is easier with my legs off than it is
Can you
with
show?
them on.
Because the feet don't get in the way.
Yeah. So I don't have the ability to tuck my feet under with the prosthetics on. So it's definitely more mobility this way.
Are you actually putting any contact on the bolster? Any weight?
Yes,
It
just
is?
like in the center of my thighs, like right in the belly of the hamstring.
Does that help you feel where your shins would be and your calves would be?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking her is,
Otherwise, if I
yeah,
come forward, I just feel like
right.
I'm
So,
floating.
so again, a sign of a really good student is that when she's getting reference right on her thigh, that actually helps her feel her shin, right? Which helps the pose feel more whole. Again, being just an example of, and then could you do it the other way again? Could you just
Sure.
show without it? So she's saying that this, and now you can tell she's in air here. But what's interesting is because she doesn't have reference, what we're trying to say is that she doesn't feel where her shin and calf would be nearly as much because there isn't enough reference for the brain to actually integrate, like, no. So go back to the other one. I like that. So I think there would be another session where we could think more about forward bends. But I hope you're getting the principle of the fact that she's figured out a way to give reference because your hip's a joint too. She's giving reference that allows her to, like, her brain to remember, or who knows what the right adjective is. Right? I don't think it's remember because she was not a yogi then. She's in new territory. She's not remembering her old body, right? That allows her to feel more. One other question, and wrapping this up, and then come on up, Lindsay, is Shavasana really different without? Do you prefer to have?
I like to have blankets under each leg if I'm just going to be flat on the floor, or have a bolster underneath my knees.
And what I'm saying is it very different? Do you like Shavasana better with or without your prosthetics?
With.
Really? No,
There's like
that's-
something that it just feels more grounding, and I don't know if it's about the
knowing
weight of
where
the
your
prosthetic.
heels are.
Yeah, it must.
I wonder
be.
if it's
Yeah.
because the other thing is the heel reflects the diaphragm. So one of the ways that I can find my heels is to soften my diaphragm,
Sure.
right? And so I wonder if somehow. Well, so let's just have you
Well,
lay
it'd be
down.
interesting, like if. So I like to have a blanket under either calf, and then. But I'm kind of wondering if like there was a sandbag on top of each of my legs.
So why don't you just lay down there? I'll go get a
Sure.
couple of sandbags. Get you a blanket.
Oh, I have two here. These will work.
I ain't got precision.
Oh, there's a.
Yep. So, but what I want you to get in is like we would normally, if somebody had really tight arms in Shavasana, like off to the side, we'd put blankets underneath them and we'd call that more restorative, right? You know, to get them in a better position, right? But one of the implications of our work in this session is that this is giving her not just, because you could say without that blanket, right, it's hard on your low back, right?
Yeah.
So that would be true for anyone. If you have, like I have tight hip flexors, and so a bolster under my knees actually helps the ease in the pose, right? But what's fascinating, and I want you to take in, is that yes, it's ease, but it's also helping her feel where her heels are. Right, so it's through the ease. So you want to try sandbags on your thighs, right?
On my shins.
On your shins. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Was that okay?
You could actually move them up more towards my body. Yep.
Is that okay, or is that rolling you out too much?
Are they?
That's just one.
It feels like are they running parallel or?
They're
Oh,
going
yeah,
across.
that's good. Okay. No, that's good then.
Let me get it more equal. So what we're trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, see that just felt good to me too. But I'm curious, it creates a sense of ease, but is there another layer? Does it help you feel more out, or is it just ease?
It does help me feel more out.
Yeah. Again,
And with the second sandbag that went on, I felt my diaphragm like move more towards my spine, and there was a release in my low back too.
Yeah. And so again, the principles happen again that we've kind of like discovering here on camera is that calming the joint allows sensation to go to the joint that isn't organically there, that's more wired in the nervous system. That's something I'll be working on the rest of my life and thinking about. I think it's probably true for everyone's poses. All right, well, thanks for watching, and there'll be more. Signing off from the hub.
Thanks for watching. At MindBody Solutions, we train yoga teachers and healthcare providers from all over the world. If you'd like to learn more, check us out at mindbodysolutions.org.